You send the text. You wait. Minutes pass. Hours. Days. And then it hits you. They're gone. No explanation. No closure. Just nothing. And that silence, it gets loud. Your brain fills in the blanks. Was I too much? Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? You replay your last message 100 times. Overanalyze their last words. You scroll through old conversations, trying to find the moment they decided to disappear. And worst of all, this isn't the first time. Different person, different situation, same ending. So why does this keep happening? Most people say, ghosting is just about them. They're emotionally immature. They can't communicate. And yeah, sure, that's part of it. But Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, would say, look deeper, because ghosting isn't just about them. It's about you. Why do certain people disappear from your life again and again? Why do you keep attracting the ones who leave? The answer isn't in your phone. It's buried deep in your subconscious. And once you see it, you can break the cycle forever. Jung believed that our relationships aren't random. They're mirrors. Every person you attract reflects something hidden inside you. Your fears, your wounds, your unresolved emotions. Think about it. Ever notice how you keep getting ghosted by the same kind of person? Different names, different faces, but the same story. That's not an accident. That's your subconscious trying to tell you something. Jung called this the shadow. It's the part of yourself you don't want to see, the insecurities, the fears, the childhood wounds. And here's the kicker. The more you ignore your shadow, the more it controls you. Let's say, deep down, you have a fear of abandonment. Maybe as a kid, you felt unseen. Maybe someone you loved disappeared. That fear doesn't just sit there. It shapes how you show up in relationships. Maybe you overinvest too quickly. You text first. You plan everything. You feel an urge to prove your worth so they won't leave. Or maybe the opposite happens. You keep your guard up. You act like you don't care, even when you do. You expect them to ghost, so you don't get attached. Either way, the cycle repeats. They leave. You hurt. And you tell yourself the same old story. People always ghost me. But what if it's not them? What if it's the pattern you haven't faced? Now, let's go deeper. Jung talked about something called anima and animus, the unconscious expectations we place on romantic partners. The anima is the unconscious feminine side of a man, and the animus is the unconscious masculine side of a woman. But regardless of gender, we all carry internalized ideals of what love should look like. If you idolize someone too quickly, putting them on a pedestal before really knowing them, that's your unconscious ideal at work. You're not seeing them. You're seeing a projection of what you want them to be. And guess what? People feel that. When you project an ideal onto someone, it creates pressure. They sense the expectation, even if you never say out loud. And that's when they start pulling away. Ever had someone be super into you at first, then suddenly disappear? Maybe they were doing the same thing, falling for an idea of you, not the real you. And when reality set in, they ran. Here's another hard truth. If you keep getting ghosted, you might be attracted to avoidance. Jung's work on the psyche explains why we unconsciously seek what feels familiar, even if it's painful. If, in childhood, love felt distant, conditional, or inconsistent, you might be drawn to people who replicate that experience. Why? Because deep down, part of you thinks this time, maybe I'll win them over. Maybe this time, I'll be enough to make them stay. But here's the problem. People who ghost aren't emotionally available. They're avoidant. The more you chase, the faster they run. The moment you recognize that dynamic, you can stop playing the game. But here's something even more twisted. Sometimes we ghost ourselves. Jung believed that if you suppress parts of yourself, those parts will find ways to make themselves known. Ever been so into someone at first, but then something shifts? You start feeling suffocated, irritated, or suddenly unsure. You find reasons to pull away. Even though a part of you still wants them, that's your own avoidant tendencies kicking in. And here's where it gets really wild. People with anxious attachment often have avoidant tendencies, too. They crave closeness, but get overwhelmed when it actually happens. So what do? They chase people who are unavailable. They run from the ones who are. Sound familiar? Jung would say, until you integrate both sides, the part of you that craves connection and the part that fears it, you'll keep getting ghosted. Or worse, you'll become the ghost. Now, let's talk about the mother wound and father wound, because ghosting often isn't just about relationships. It's about how you first experience love. Jung believed that our first relationships, especially with our parents, create deep, unconscious imprints. If your mother was emotionally distant, you might chase emotionally distant people, hoping this time you'll finally feel chosen. If your father was inconsistent or abandoned you, you might feel an underlying fear that every relationship will end the same way. These wounds don't just sit there. They show up in the people you attract and the way you respond to them. But once you become conscious of them, you can choose differently. Instead of chasing the ones who leave, you can start valuing the ones who stay. Instead of fearing closeness, you can learn to trust it. Instead of ghosting yourself, abandoning your own needs just to keep someone around, you can stand firm in your worth. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But here's the truth. Ghosting isn't fate. It's a pattern. And patterns can be broken. When you heal the fear behind the pain, you stop attracting people who trigger it. You stop feeling drawn to the ones who disappear. You stop seeing their silence as rejection and start seeing it as redirection, because the right people don't ghost. And when you've done the inner work, you'll stop being interested in the ones who do. If this hit home for you, drop a comment. What's the biggest relationship pattern you've noticed in your life? And if you want more deep dives into Jung, psychology, and relationships, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep unpacking this together. Because the more you understand yourself, the more you attract people who truly see you.